Hello and welcome to Consistency from Fortress Edge to Security Service Edge. Revolutionize your security with Palo Alto Networks. Today's webinar is sponsored by Palo Alto and produced by Actual Tech Media. My name is Scott Becker. I'm from Actual Tech and I am excited to be your moderator for this special event. Now, before we get to today's great content, we do have 4 housekeeping items that will help you get the most out of this session. First off, we want this to be an informative event for you, so we encourage any questions in the questions box in your webinar control panel. Not only will we have team members responding to questions during the live event, but we'll also have a dedicated Q&A session at the end of the presentation where we'll discuss in greater detail some of the top questions that you ask. That Q&A panel is also the place to let us know about any technical issues that you might be experiencing. A browser refresh will fix most audio, video, or slide advancement issues, but if that doesn't work, just let us know in the Q&A and we'll provide further technical assistance. Now, second, in the handout section of your webinar control panel, you'll find that we are offering several resources. I'd especially like to call your attention to a link to get started with Palo Alto Networks. I encourage you to access that link and the other resources in the handouts and share them with your friends and colleagues. Now, third, at the end of this webinar event, we'll be awarding a $250 Amazon gift card to one lucky registrant. Of course, you must be in attendance during the live event to qualify for the prize. Official terms and conditions of today's prize drawing can be found in the handout section. Just scroll to the bottom and you'll find the prize terms and conditions link there. Now, finally, one of the best benefits of an event like this is the opportunity to ask a question of our expert presenters. So to help encourage your questions, we have a special additional prize for you. That's another Amazon gift card, this one for $50 for the best question. After the event is over, we'll look through all the questions that came in, pick out the very best one, and contact that prize winner. Okay, with all that housekeeping out of the way, let's get to today's fantastic session. So it's my pleasure to introduce you to our presenters today. We have Don Meyer, who's Product Marketing Director for SASE at Palo Alto Networks. And we have Trevor Cardwell, who's Head of Cloud and Network Architecture for Sumitomo Pharma America. So Don, the floor is yours.
Okay, well, welcome everybody. Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening to you all, depending on where it is that you're dialing in from. And thank you for joining us on today's webinar, Consistency from Fortress Edge to Security Service Edge. We've got a lot to unpack in this session. It's going to be very, very informative, but also interactive. And we encourage you throughout the presentation to go ahead and use the Q&A section of this window to be able to ask any questions. We'll open it up at the end of this session for a formal Q&A so we can answer any and all of your questions. So without further ado, let's go ahead and jump in. Welcome to our webinar. My name is Don Meyer. I'm part of the product marketing organization here at Palo Alto Networks. I've been with the organization for about 3.5 years, focused solely on Prisma Access and Prisma SASE. What are those things? We're going to get into them in just a little bit. But more importantly, joining me, I'm very honored to have Trevor Cardwell, who is Head of Cloud and Network Architecture at Sumitomo Pharma America. He is going to be on board with us to give us more of a kind of a practical perspective on their experiences, challenges as well, and some of the lessons they've learned in terms of being able to drive now a consistency across their entire infrastructure. And I couldn't think of anyone better to join me and articulate that than Trevor. So Trevor, welcome to the webinar.
Thank you, Don, and thank you everybody for having me. I'm excited to be here today and kind of share our experience. I've been working with the Sumitomo Pharma America group companies for close to 5 years now. My position here, as my title says, is Head of Cloud and Network Architecture. Been really working on kind of building out a new next generation network for our companies as we started our consolidation between some of our subsidiaries.
And Trevor, could you tell us a little bit more about Sumitomo Pharma, kind of your experience with Palo Alto Networks and kind of your day-to-day?
Yeah, so Sumitomo Pharma America, SMPA for short, it was formed through a consolidation of a bunch of U.S. affiliates. Our goal at U.S. SMPA is to accelerate scientific breakthroughs on behalf of patients. And that's really done by unlocking innovative science and solutions through cutting-edge technologies. Our partnership with Palo Alto really began before Sumitomo. I'm from a prior affiliate, which was called Sumitomo, which was formed from a partnership between Sumitomo Pharma and Roivant Sciences. From this partnership came Communivant, which was built fresh with a brand new architecture, which was kind of exciting. We got to choose the next cutting edge technologies when we built it out, and this company was built in 2020. We had used Palo on the prior companies. Kind of one of the jobs of Roivant was to build quick companies and spin them out. And we had chosen Palo Alto at the time because it had a simple appliance and it was very easy to manage from a small IT team.
Fantastic. And I would imagine that, you guys are pushing the boundaries of innovation and really starting to, dive into more innovative types of approaches and workflows. How has the partnership with Palo Alto Networks kind of helped to facilitate that and really kind of align to some of those goals?
The partnership with Palo has been really great for us. As I said, we've been a small IT team the entire time, so we've needed to have technologies that was scalable but also very simple to kind of get set up. We had to have something that was quick to learn, but also was able to support a lot of users and secure. Right, it's kind of top of the mind in today's world. Everybody knows if you pick a bad product, if you're a small IT team, you're gonna have a hard time.
Absolutely, absolutely. And speaking of hard times, I mean, you guys are probably facing this a lot as well, and especially given the sensitivity of the work that you do. There delivering security in the past, and especially 10 years ago, was quite a bit different than what we're trying to accomplish today. And we're facing some really interesting challenges as well. And a lot of it stems from what we learned during the pandemic and how we've kind of come out of the pandemic, right? And I'm sure you're in the throes of dealing with a lot of this as well. But now our workforce is hybrid. That seems to be the norm. And irrespective of whether an organization is trying to bring people back to an office, they're doing so only part of the time. The rest of the time, employees are able to work wherever they feel most productive, at home office, a Starbucks, wherever. At the same time, and as you articulated, there is a lot of transformation going on. I think one of the ways we were able to sustain productivity during the pandemic was by adopting the cloud and being a little bit more flexible, a little bit more elastic in terms of what we can do to make sure that our applications are available, that infrastructure is available and stuff like that. But these two massive shifts are dramatically increasing our attack surface and dramatically changing the game for our adversaries. And our adversaries are certainly taking notice of that. And in fact, the volume and sophistication of attacks is certainly increasing as well. And we're seeing to the tune of 560,000 new pieces of malware detected daily. And it's just becoming almost overwhelming, not only trying to accommodate where our workforce is going, what applications and data sets they're trying to get into, which could be anywhere and everywhere. But now the massive amount of malware and sophisticated attacks that are persistent that are coming at us. Could you give us a little perspective on how these trends have been shaping kind of your overall approach towards cyber, and what are the key things that you guys are looking for in terms of a partnership with a vendor like Palo Alto Networks?
Definitely. One of the things you mentioned in the beginning, it kind of made me chuckle because as we talk about COVID, right, there's the pre-pandemic ages where it really was true. Everybody went to an office every day. And when you built out your security posture, you mostly focused on what your offices look like and where people were traveling to. Your remote users were mostly an edge case, right? Yes, you had to secure them. You wanted to make sure they were, but that was a small percentage. You focused in the office or in your data centers. And kind of as the pandemic hit and as we're getting out of this post-pandemic phase, we see, as you said, hybrid workforce is here to stay. And we've gotten out of this protect the office to now protect the endpoint. And you have to build an environment that is very scalable, but also able to protect anybody and have the same experience no matter where they are. And that can become difficult because now instead of having a security posture in one place, you're now having a security posture globally. And it was nice that during this transition, we actually had a very big initiative initiative that was started by our head of infrastructure, Jeff Miller, which was very big on like a cloud first initiative, right? We wanted to get everything out of our data centers, everything out of our IDFs, MDFs, and just be completely in mobile workforce that really didn't matter where users were. So this started to have us redesign our actual remote access posture and how people were accessing things, which also made us have to relook at how we were doing our network resources in the cloud as well. And that all came together to say, as you're right, the sophistications of attacks became more complicated And now we had to be able to solve for that as well.
Yeah, and what we saw is that a lot of how we're able to sustain kind of productivity and employee engagement was going direct to applications, right? So enabling our workforces to just get directly to the applications that they needed to be able to get their work done instead of having to create, to your point, these taxable or very slow links going back to some corporate data center or some physical location, only to hairpin them back out to go back to the applications and the resources they needed, which could be in the cloud or in a SaaS application. So direct to app was kind of an outcry of what our workforce needed. But it delivers kind of an interesting challenge, and that is how do we bring that same kind of capability from our premises, as you described, protecting the offices, how do we bring that same posture, if you will, that same consistent experience, consistent security capability out to where the users are? And in doing so, how do we do that without impacting the experience and making sure that what the users do is high performing and pleasurable and also inducive for them to be able to get their jobs done? And would you say that this is kind of one of the key challenges that you faced as you were trying to make that transition away from the offices into more of a hybrid workforce?
It was huge. As we started to really migrate some of our applications and bring them into the different cloud vendors, we needed to have kind of this single pane of glass of security across all our environments. And now we had to have applications that were scaling across different regions inside of clouds and users connecting from different places in the world. And to have something that we could say, all right, doesn't really matter where a user's connecting from. Every user is exactly the same. Every application is behind the same type of security, no matter where it's deployed to, and the application owners can move their applications wherever they want, and we can still keep that same consistent security without us even having to do much.
So it sounds like what you're really looking for was moving away from what we've been taught over the last 20, 30 years, is that anytime you have a specific problem in cyber, you go off and you make and deploy a very specific solution to solve for that one problem. And pretty soon, this is kind of the architecture that we're stuck with, right? We have multiple stacks everywhere that are trying to satisfy the use cases for that particular problem at that particular location. Unfortunately, what you just described, kind of building that consistency, you can't attain in this model. And in fact, this model really kind of breaks that advantage for you because now your users have different experiences. It's far more complex to be able to manage. And with this patchwork of security, it's impossible to deliver a consistent set of capabilities. Is that pretty much the what you guys experienced as you were going through this?
Oh, exactly. It's like dominoes when you look at the bottom lines there, the complexity of the patchwork, right? If one goes bad, it falls into the other and it makes everything worse. If you have a really complex environment, well, it makes it really hard to get stuff done. So it's manually intensive. And then the users that are requesting things or need something have a very poor experience because things either take longer or they have to go through the struggles of figuring out why it's not working correctly. It becomes very difficult very quickly. And having a small IT team, it becomes even harder. And as everybody knows today, it's hard to get good talent. So if you have a small team and you have a manually intensive environment, you're going to spend a lot more time and you're going to end up having security gaps because you have to basically assume risk to be able to get work done.
And with a small IT team and you're trying to support a global infrastructure and a global workforce, it makes it almost impossible to try and satisfy it with this model. In fact, this model really is not the answer. I think what really you are describing and articulating is a platform approach that allows for the consistent delivery of your posture, of your capabilities of enforcement, and now experiences kind of everywhere and anywhere work is being done across your hybrid workforce. And that's really kind of the advantage of going with a partner like Palo Alto Networks. And what we've been doing at Palo Alto Networks is really kind of honing in on this kind of platform approach, if you will, and something that isn't an issue that we woke up one day and decided, oh my gosh, well, let's just go out and try and do this. This has actually been in our DNA for quite some time. We've got this very robust capability of security services, if you will. We've been moving them into the cloud so that we can have them available everywhere that they're needed. but we've also been hard at work in delivering the right form factors to be able to bring those security services to the right enforcement wherever our user community is. The net of it is now we have the opportunity to truly help organizations transform their access infrastructure and transform how they get security to their users in a way that maintains management. You now have an opportunity to have unified management and operations across all of your infrastructure. You get comprehensive threat and attack prevention now because all of the capabilities are delivered at the same time. There's one policy, one enforcement wherever your users are. It doesn't matter what form factor they hit, it's all consistently delivered from our security capabilities. And what does that mean? Consistent enforcement. Our users now don't have to learn different workflows, don't have to have cumbersome, traffic patterns to be able to contend with. They get this consistent experience everywhere, which means they can do their jobs much more effectively. And quite honestly, it becomes what you were just describing, that opportunity now to really simplify that infrastructure and align the security capabilities to what it is that your organization is really trying to do. Does that kind of articulate what you were experiencing? And could you dive in a little bit deeper in terms of what you guys were experiencing when you started to look into kind of that platform approach from Palo Alto Networks?
Definitely, and it's a really great question. And as I kind of said in the last slide, right, a lot of this builds on top of each other, right? You need to have a platform that really is a unified management. As we started to go after pre-COVID, we needed to have something that had a single pane of glass. Just to kind of back in the past, I remember spending hours in old type of CLI platforms where I had to run Python scripts to see what my environment looked like, where the actual configurations were, and I'd say, oh, I forgot an IP address in this ACL, and you spend hours, and it was horrible. And as I said, being a small team, that really was not something that we could do. So as we started to rebuild our platform, and luckily in 2020, right as the pandemic was happening, we were actually standing up Immunivant right through that partnership. So we got to redesign it all fresh. And that was one of the major things that we came with. We said we have to have a unified way to see every security policy that's out there. And as you know, we were leveraging luckily Panorama at the time, so that gave us those firewall configurations. But then we started to say, well, we need to have the remote users configurations and our cloud configurations. And by able to bring those kinds of resources in and those policies in, we now did started to create that unified platform.
Fantastic.
And
sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, and by doing that, right, it really did, like I said, create that consistency everywhere, which is huge for us because being in the pharma industry, we do have a lot of compliance and type of auditing requirements that we have to fill out. We have to be able to prove at any given time that we have such policies in place for certain users to certain applications. So it was very, very important to us.
So Trevor, you definitely know us from the hardware platforms that we develop and the software form factors that we've developed and delivered in the past. But one of the latest things that we brought to market, which helps to bring this platform idea to fruition, is our SSE or Security Service Edge product called Prisma Access. What Prisma Access is realistically is taking that pedigree of all the security services that we have been honing our skills on over the past 17 years and transforming that into a truly cloud native, cloud delivered security service edge. And it's a security service edge that does extend now your posture everywhere consistently your user community is, and does so with robust security capabilities we're now calling ZTNA 2.0. Why? What's ZTNA 1.0? ZTNA has been around for a while. It has, served as a good foundation for helping organizations really overcome some of the challenges of VPN access and really kind of mitigating the attack surface. But given what we talked about in terms of the hybrid workforce and the cloud first initiatives, we felt traditional ZTNA really didn't go far enough in terms of providing the right security outcomes to be able to mitigate the risks that we're facing today. So we've given it a refresh, given it a shot in the arm, if you will, in terms of its capabilities to do continuous trust verification and continuous security inspection to be able to derive the right outcomes, but do so consistently. We offer the same capabilities on-prem now, seamlessly extended out to where our user community is. At the same time, really focused on the user outcomes and the user experiences. As you said before, Trevor, you can't do anything now by introducing something that's going to slow our user community down and introduce a lot of trouble tickets, especially for an organization that has a lean IT staff. If the user community is productive, if they're staying plugged into their applications, if the experiences are pleasurable, they'll continue to stay productive. They won't go off and try and circumvent the things we're trying to get them to do and introduce new security problems, and it won't overload our IT staff. So optimal user experience is key in terms of driving the right outcomes and getting the right solution set into an infrastructure and into an organization. Then to wrap it into that unified management, that single pane of glass management experience that you mentioned, really streamlines the IT operations. It simplifies how we now start to deliver security, how we manage our security infrastructure. And again, it optimizes the experience for the user because it is a consistent set of capabilities, a consistent set of enforcement. And that's true anywhere in the world. Prisma Access truly is a cloud delivered service, was built for running on some of the largest hypervisors in the world, which gives us a nice global footprint, but also it gives us the opportunity to tap into some of the infrastructure underlying those hypervisor cloud environments, or the hyperscale cloud environments, I should say, that allows us to be able to deliver SLA performance that's above and beyond where some of our competitors could even dream of. That's the difference in going with Palo Alto Networks for now extending that consistency over to your user community and your hybrid workforces. And what it can allow you now to do is to have that singularity in terms of enforcement, in terms of management. You have one platform, one security stack, one policy, if you will, and a user experience that is consistent, irrespective of whether your users are on campus, remote offices, home offices, at the airport, getting access to any application. And Trevor, from your experience, you knew our firewalls. What was your experience in terms of bringing Prisma Access into your environment, and how difficult was it for you guys to get spun up on Prisma Access and get your user community to be able to port over into Prisma Access?
Definitely. So we were originally as I said before, a global protect shop, right? That's how users got in. And as the pandemic hit, we noticed, the users were obviously spreading out across the US. And I think one of the things that used to keep me up at night is I'm going to lose a circuit in one of the office and people are going to have a bad time and it's going to be horrible. So at that point is when we said, all right, we need to get to something that's actually scalable. And well, scalable is a huge part there too, is we also going forward that we were going to be bringing on a lot of our subsidiaries to our platform. So we knew we needed to have something that we could scale up and down as our user base needed it. So that's when we decided that we needed to look for a new product that was out there that was able to give us that cloud hosted VPN infrastructure. Obviously, being in our environment, Palo was the obvious choice for us because we wanted to integrate it more and have that single pane of unified configuration in glass. For us, that transition from Global Protect to Prisma was pretty seamless, right? We were a panorama shop before. We had the policies already built, where literally once we built on Prisma Access remote users, right? We literally just are mobile users. We took that same policy, we copied it over, we deployed the new environments. I think I stood up in the first week, I stood up 7 different locations, and sent out a simple config. I actually just changed the DNS on the head end, and the user just connected. And we actually went from before, I was never a huge fan of a full tunnel, to now we run a complete full tunnel, always on VPN with no issue. And the users actually had a very positive experience because not only did they have an easier time connecting to internal resources, they now had a much better connection to internal resources because they were connecting to head ends nearest to them. We had users on the West Coast before that had to go from the West Coast to the East Coast to connect to some infrastructure. So for the overall experience, it really was seamless for the users, and they appreciated it, which was probably one of the first times dealing in networking that the users had a positive experience for me actually putting something in place.
And imagine that, for the first time, a security solution that actually delivers a positive experience. I'm so used to having, a lot of pushback. Anytime we're trying to deploy a new service, we got to have a bunch of new policy around it. We're going to bring in some new thing, and it slows things down traditionally. And usually the user community rejects that. And to have them seamlessly transition in, that had to be a big relief for your IT staff, I would imagine.
It really was huge. We actually saw a decrease in the amount of service requests we got because we had issues before users connecting in when you trying to connect to resources, either bad connections, things would always go wrong for some reason. And with an actual platform that was a little bit more scalable, it took it out of our hands. That overall maintenance of even the infrastructure underneath it, we only now had to focus on the security posture and the actual users accessing it and the application access. No longer do we have to care about the underlying infrastructure, patching, management, which was huge for us and a big win.
So essentially, extending now your posture with Prisma Access or introducing Prisma Access into your environment kind of sounds like it added some really interesting benefits to your organization. You talked before about having data centers and trying to migrate things off, but I imagine there's still some things that are on-prem that probably aren't going to go away, or at least not in the immediate future. So still got to support and sustain kind of a hybrid infrastructure where things are going to the cloud, things are coming on-prem. But that load on the data center, I would imagine, now that you don't have to terminate all that traffic there, you probably can offload some of that traffic to the cloud and again, continue to utilize your existing infrastructure in a much more efficient way. And delivering that unified management can give you, again, that single pane of glass experience. It simplifies things. You talked about the user experience and how they're being enhanced. Are you seeing anything else in terms of kind of the introduction of Prisma Access in terms of the added benefits to your organization?
I mean, you really touched upon one of the big ones for us was with the data center, right? We are in the process of trying to shut down and kind of migrate some of our servers. Before, when we had to do this and we had VPN concentrated, like the VPN had ends, it became difficult because you said, all right, I'm going to move this app. What's that really? What's going to happen? I'm going to have different security postures. I'm going to have different access methods. The user experience is going to change. Now we can actually go and move applications, and we really don't have to care about the mobile users because we know wherever the application goes, majority of the time the user is going to have the same experience. There are some applications that are difficult to move that sometimes do have to live in a data center, but it helps us out definitely a lot. One of the other things we saw too is we are going through a consolidation of companies. We had 7 companies before. Last year in April, we announced that we're going to be in 1 in July. So a lot of work had to be done, a lot of different infrastructures, a lot of different teams, technologies that were out there. And we really saw that as we're trying to consolidate and cut back on all these redundant services, that we're able to migrate them a lot quicker, and also use other services. One of the good ones we see here is actually app access. We had some older technologies that were being used to kind of as I want to say, I forget the exact terms. There's so many terms out there. We had users that were remoting in over just over the web servers to be able to get into them, logging in through like ADFS or something.
Right.
And now we can actually throw that behind the Prisma Access engine and say, listen, it's the same experience for our partners to be able to connect to applications internally as it is for most of our users to be able to connect. The difference is they're coming from our web browser. So it really has been a positive experience as we move forward.
And quite honestly, now with Prisma Access being a truly cloud delivered service, there's no physical hardware or virtual hardware. There's nothing that you need to maintain other than kind of the policies. So as your business is evolving and as you're bringing on additional partners and things like that, you have a great infrastructure now that can kind of scale with where your organization needs to go and allow you to be able to now to bring in partners or other users in other even divisions now in a bit more seamless fashion. Could you kind of elaborate a little bit on that as well?
Oh yeah, it's huge. It was kind of funny when we were consolidating one of our companies overnight. I had to bring in 2,700 users, and normally you're thinking of that many users, you think, all right, I need to get new hardware. I need to think about how that's going to be done. I need to think about bandwidth concerns. My only concern was I had scoped a subnet, and I was like, crap, I got to go scope another subnet, add it in there. And that was really it, is to throw that in there. And then overnight, I was able to add those users, and they were just onboarded.
Oh my gosh.
Which for me was a crazy.
I've had nightmares of long weeks, long weekends, trying to spin up the hardware, trying to get the right infrastructure in place, going through policies, making policy changes at the last minute, only to find we misconfigured something because we had to touch so many other parts of the infrastructure. Now you just go one place to be able to do that, spin it up in the matter of hours, if not days. You've got this infrastructure that's ready to accommodate it. It's got to be a huge advantage especially for keeping you guys, as agile as you need to be in order to, continue to push the innovation envelope.
It definitely, and it was actually really great too on the security side of the house for just seeing what users were doing out there, right? As we're trying to consolidate these companies, it knowing what all users in every single company were doing and kind of consolidating that was huge for the security team because they had a single pane of glass. They could say, all right, now I can turn around and say, I know my users are doing the right things. They're not going to bad places, right? We don't have to worry about that. We have the same malware protection because one of the biggest things in a merger and a consolidation is you have a lot of different platforms with a lot of different configurations, and it's hard to say what they all look like out there. And when it comes back to auditing and when it comes back to compliance, those are huge. And for us, we were able to just literally, as we were going through this process, be able to put a stamp on it and say, hey, listen, we're good right now. We know that we actually have visibility into our environment and what our users are doing, and that they are running in some type of secure manner at this time.
Fantastic. And we wouldn't be a webinar in 2024 without asking the zero trust question. And how is Sumitomo's or Sumitomo Pharma's perception on zero trust? Where are you guys at in your journey? And how do you feel now you've got an infrastructure that can help support that journey, if you will?
Zero trust, right? Buzzword of probably the 2020s. I think that in AI is very important to us. We were probably a lot further about a year ago, as before the consolidation happened. We're getting back into it again. It is very important to us. And as I touched about kind of the app access, right? That's where those types of things where the zero trust really becomes important to where you're getting away from actually having to protect the data center. You're actually saying, all right, let's actually protect the application and identify the users. So zero trust is important to us, and we are currently reworking a lot of that. So it's as we work through the Prisma Access, it has become pretty much of a core feature of ours. I think I don't know if I was talking about it earlier, but I run a very strict policies of I always separate the users and the servers, right, in our applications. And I say at the end of the day, anybody that's a user needs to be able to have some type of security policy and some security policy before they actually access our internal services, whether that is riding through app access, whether that's riding through the Prisma Access remote services, or whether that's actually riding through the cloud NFGs. We always make sure that we separate the users and the applications out. That way we can keep a secure environment and kind of lock down our actual application services.
And along those lines, with respect to zero trust, you have to have kind of a strong authentication infrastructure in place to be able to support multi-factor, single sign-on, that sort of thing. Yeah. How was the integration of that existing infrastructure into something like Prisma Access? Was it a fairly seamless experience, or could you give us a little bit of insight in that as well?
Definitely. So we actually use Prisma Access in two different ways when it comes to our actual user identities. Certificates are a huge part of it, and Prisma Access was able to actually pick that up pretty quickly, and it actually helped us scale out our environment to where we actually have a single identity for most of our users that follows them through these certificates through the entire environment, and Prisma picked that up. And our major IDP, it was pretty seamless to integrate with. We use it for a lot of our app access and things like that. And we can actually give our partners access through our IDPs to be able to come in and access our internal applications that way. So Prisma has really separated that gap of you have to have username and passwords, or you can only come from this one computer in the domain, a domain computer, to where we can really allow a larger subset of devices to be able to connect simply. The other day I set up in a few hours, we're getting ready to deploy to all our iOS devices for our mobile users, VPN app access. And it was seamless because of the way it's able to integrate with the iOS applications and actually have the configurations correctly.
Well, it sounds like Prisma Access was the right solution to help you extend kind of the right types of capabilities and be a foundation, if you will, to start leveraging for additional either use cases or additional capabilities as your organization is growing. And that kind of leads to an interesting question. Most of the time, we have organizations that see this type of solution, hear these types of things, go, oh, great, now this is going to require, I got to rip and replace this, or I got to make all these changes to my infrastructure, and I got to change all these workflows and that sort of thing. Or it's a bit overwhelming. I get so many problems to solve. Where do I begin? How could you provide some guidance, if you will, in terms of helping other organizations kind of narrow that scope down and really start focusing in on how and where to get started? Would you say that kind of focusing on the remote access or the remote user side of things would be a good first or a focus point to start bringing this type of capability into their environment?
Definitely dealing with remote users first was it simplified a lot of things, right? When we wanted to, so we brought on our remote users first, and this allowed us to free up the resources at our other offices and sites and things like that. So as the users were coming in, they had that unified policy. It didn't really matter where we actually were moving things. I could start doing work on other firewalls, other type of appliances. And once we did that, I was able to start migrating the offices into Prisma Remote Access, right? So the user traffic, in my opinion, is probably one of the most important ones and one of the most impactful, right? When you have a positive user experience and you get them into an environment that they're going to be able to scale inside of and that you do not have to worry about. Literally, you're not running servers anymore. You're not running applications, I'm sorry, appliances. You're not running hardware. You're not doing firmware upgrades. You get the users off of there, right? And that's a huge just weight off. That was a huge weight off my shoulders. And I got to imagine the weight off of anybody's shoulders, right? You don't have to deal with those policies. So definitely dealing with the users first, because once they're done, you can go and now make any changes you need to your environment. And as long as you really don't mess up that bad, which eventually everybody does, right? You really are not going to impact your users much because due to the scalability and due to the flexibility of the Prisma platform, the users aren't really going to notice anything that you're doing on the back end.
And especially if you have, Global Protect already in place, the same agent now can talk to and interface with Prisma Access to make that transaction or that transition, I should say, from a premises-based or a VPN concentrator to Prisma Access a little bit more seamless for the user experience, correct? And that way, again, they're not
Oh,
doing something different.
yes and no, right? So for us, it was as simple as I changed the DNS
Yep.
record and I sent out a restart pan GPS service. And as soon as I did that, everybody connected into the new head end, which was really great. For the users, while it was it, it it was it's kind of interesting, right? I wouldn't say it was seamless, but it was actually a positive, not seamless, because they automatically started getting, as I said before, they were closer to their actual applications. They had a much better experience connecting to stuff, and they actually now for the security side of the house, everybody was always riding through the secure platform. Before we had to allow users to be able to disconnect from the VPN because we only had a few head ends here and there, and so if they were having a poor experience, the help desk would just say just disconnect from the VPN and
Yep.
work. And that's the last thing we wanted. We want to make sure that everybody's connected all the time and they're riding through the infrastructure, so that our security policies are in place at any given time. So it worked out in the benefit of both the user's experience and also our security posture.
Fantastic. And quite honestly, if we can solve that and extend those same security capabilities and help keep our user community just focused on the things that they know and already trust, that solves for a lot of the issues and challenges we have, especially in a remote workforce. And we learned painfully during the pandemic. We throw more things at them, give them different clients to try and figure out how to deal with. They're going to turn that stuff off. They're going to bypass that stuff. And to your point, turn on VPN introduces additional risk. Now we can try and bring a solution in place that solves for that option or that opportunity to really eliminate a lot of that risk associated with the remote and hybrid workforce. Would you agree?
Oh, definitely. And the as you get into it, so that's the remote side of it, and even on the other side of the remote sites and things like that, as we started to migrate things in, it really just started to lessen a lot of the burdens. And so even for the user's experience, where they were having the same policies across everywhere, we introduced it into our VAI environment. We introduced it into a bunch of different places where the user's experience just continuously benefited as we introduced more and more of it.
Fantastic. So for any Palo Alto Networks customer, bringing Prisma Access into focus on the remote workforce, especially if they're challenged with, performance, having to turn off VPNs or recommending turn off VPNs, this is a great opportunity to modernize that access infrastructure and really deliver that consistency in posture and consistency in experience. Even for customers that aren't Palo Alto Networks firewall customers, bringing Prisma Access into their environment is pretty seamless as well. The client's Global Protect is part of the service, it can easily be pushed down to user devices, and it provides that always-on connectivity and security to be able to get your users access to any of their applications in a way that is optimal for their experiences. Well, Trevor, I think it's time probably to open it up for some questions here. So let's go ahead and do that. We'll turn it back to the moderator and see if we can get some questions going on here. Trevor, thank you so much for this valuable information. And if there are questions, where can people find you?
Thank you very much, Don. And if anybody has any questions outside of this, feel free to reach out to me on LinkedIn. I always like to connect and network with everybody. And it really was a pleasure talking with you.
Fantastic, Trevor. Thanks again. And now let's go ahead and open it up for some questions.
All right, so Don and Trevor, great conversation so far. You guys ready for some questions?
Indeed.
Yeah, I'm ready.
All right, super. So first one here is they're asking, what are the key differences between Palo Alto Networks NGFW and Prisma Access?
Ooh, that's a great question. And Trevor, why don't I field that one first and love to get your perspective on that. Quite honestly, Palo Alto Networks is very unique in the sense that we have been really focused on kind of that platform approach, even from day one. Yes, we build hardware. And yes, we started off building hardware. But more importantly, with that hardware, we built into it software capabilities that allowed us to do things like single pass security inspections, allowed us to bring in additional capabilities for inspecting web traffic or looking for existing threats or advanced persistent threats or zero-day threats. All of those security capabilities we've been migrating into the cloud to allow us to be able to scale them up, scale them out, deliver them everywhere, and continue to update them so that everyone can benefit from those capabilities. Now, that was where we started. As we've evolved our wares, we've also ported that that physical form factor, if you will, into software developed and software delivered form factor. So you can bring it into virtual private networks such as your cloud VPCs or virtual networks from Azure. You can bring it into your virtual data centers. So if you're using Cisco ACI or VMware and you want to be able to run firewalls and hypervisors, you can do that as well and provide that east-west protection and north-south protections in those virtual environments. What Prisma Access really is it takes that essential functionality of a Palo Alto Networks, I'll just call it an enforcement point, and it brings it to a cloud-delivered form factor. So essentially, the only difference between Prisma Access and the rest of the enforcement points we offer is that Prisma Access is fully cloud-native. It's fully delivered by the cloud, which means there's no more hardware that you need to either manage and maintain. You don't have to spin anything up. You don't have to physically own anything to be able to get Prisma Access to be able to function. All you need to do is be able to manage it and then push policy to it. And essentially, it's the same policy, if you will, that you get with the hardware and virtual form factors. In fact, it's the same identical security capabilities that's now delivered in a cloud-delivered form factor. And since it's cloud-delivered and we leverage a very robust infrastructure, we can deliver that anywhere and everywhere in the world and bring it as close to your user community, especially the remote user community, than you could in terms of trying to provide VPN links and connections to different geos. Now we can extend our footprint to just about every geo that we're doing business in and bring that security enforcement capability close to the user so that it's a single hop away from where they are, but they get that consistent experience, they get that consistent enforcement, and because it's a truly cloud native service, it grows and scales with the cloud, allowing you to not have to focus on capacity planning and issues like that. We can handle that stuff for you, so you just focus on driving the business forward and making sure that those policies are updated and maintained. I think those are the key differences. Trevor, from your perspective, did I miss anything? Is there anything else that you would add to that?
I think that pretty much summarizes it, right? We're all three, right? Cloud next generation, regular next generation firewalls, Prisma Access. For us, it's really, on the Prisma side, it's the scalability aspect where, for the users, and for the other side of it, it's obviously when you have your data centers or your large cloud environments, you may just have to have, so there's more policies local to it. So you have a little bit better performance here and there, but that's pretty much it. Yeah.
And with
Okay.
with regards to that, that's policy now in that same management solution. And I believe you're using Panorama, if I'm not mistaken. That
Oh yeah.
Panorama just
Okay.
manages Prisma Access as if it's another part of your security infrastructure. It doesn't treat it differently. It pushes the same policies and allows you to get the same kind of visibility and control from just a different form factor, if I'm not mistaken, correct?
Oh, 100%. I mean, it's the nice part is, right, is our data, our next generation on-prem firewalls and our cloud firewalls and our Prisma Access, right? We have top level policies in Panorama that apply to all of them, which gives you that uniform kind of configuration, which is really nice. So that's how we do get that the consistent policy at all sites.
Okay. All right, great. Hey, next question here. They're wondering, how is Prisma Access licensed?
That's a great question. A little bit different than what we do on the other form factors. Prisma Access is actually licensed per user per year, and that user could be a remote user. It could be a person who's sitting at their home office, or in the sense of a branch office, it could be in terms of bandwidth. How much bandwidth do you really need for that particular location? That's how Prisma Access realistically is licensed to be able to get the core functionality of it. On top of that, there are other things that we can do to adjust its configuration, to adjust its security capabilities for specific things that we want to prevent and or specific things we wish to inspect from our remote locations and from our remote users. So there are a number of different add-ons that we could bring to it, such as things like autonomous digital experience management, which allow us to proactively look at how a user's experience is getting access to the applications that they're looking to get access to. Take a quick deep dive into all the function, all the infrastructure between the user and its application, all the hops, all the different points, and really see what's going on from a holistic standpoint. So we can help actually be more proactive in terms of steering that session into the most optimal performing environment that we possibly can. And at the same time, it can also give our users some guidance, such as, hey, we see that your Wi-Fi signal strength is bad. You might want to get closer to your access point. Or we see that you tend to have performance issues at 12 o'clock. You must be in your kitchen turning on the microwave, something like that. Get away from your microwave. Stuff like that we can help our user community really get the most performance out of their experiences, stay productive, and stay attached to their applications in the most expeditious manner. The other thing that we offer with regards to add-ons is additional security capabilities. If you're looking to mitigate things like IoT devices in offices, or even provide advanced next-gen CASB functionality to be able to mitigate the risks associated with SaaS applications. Those are add-on licenses, but the bulk of what Prisma Access is licensed for is around remote users. So we offer a per user per year license accommodating physical users and or bandwidth for remote locations.
Okay. Excellent. Another question here has to do with branch offices. Do I need Palo Alto Networks firewalls at branch offices to be able to use Prisma Access for remote sites?
Ooh, that's a great question. And Trevor, why don't I field that one first and then love to get your perspective on that. Palo Alto Networks has really done a very, very good job of supporting standards-based IPsec protocols in Prisma Access. And the reason we did that is we know, obviously, we have hybrid environments, right? Environments where we're using multi-cloud, different cloud vendors, a lot of different SaaS applications, there's a lot of different connections that we need. At the same time, hybrid environments also mean that we have perhaps a hodgepodge of stuff that we need and have been leveraging, but we still need to try and utilize to be able to connect into our access infrastructure. And some of that could be legacy routers or legacy SD-WAN products and things of that nature. As long as the device at the location speaks IPsec and can generate an IPsec tunnel, we can terminate that tunnel at Prisma Access. So net of it is that no, you don't need Palo Alto Networks equipment, a firewall, NGFW, virtual or physical form factor at a particular location to be able to use Prisma Access or to be able to start to onboard those locations to Prisma Access. Now, when you do bring Palo Alto Networks equipment into those locations, obviously there are some additional benefits you get from performance and management and some good TCO kind of benefits there. But net is if you are trying to bring Prisma Access into an environment, you're already using Palo Alto Networks firewalls at your head end, but your branch offices are not Palo Alto Networks, or you don't need firewalls at those branch offices to be able to light them up. You're already using an existing SD-WAN solution. Yes, you can bring Prisma Access into those environments, use your existing infrastructure, and connect it to Prisma Access. Would you say that's accurate, Trevor?
Oh yeah, 100%. And as I kind of said, we're starting to bring our branch offices in, and not to be the very bad news, right, for Palo, but as we're doing our refreshes, we have SD-WAN appliances that we're going to go ahead and install, and Palo partners with a bunch of different SD-WANs. So wherever we don't need to have full firewalls on site, we're actually going through and pulling firewalls out and actually just installing SD-WAN appliances. And it's going to make us hopefully a little bit more nimble and a little bit more. We can deploy our sites a little bit quicker that way. So it allows us, it's a perk. Very nice.
Okay.
Very
All right,
cool.
great. Next one, they're wondering, can I replace my Palo Alto Networks NGFWs with Prisma Access?
Oh, another interesting question, and I imagine that's a bit of a weighted question too. So I'll start it off, Trevor, and then love to get your perspective on that. Bottom line is, yes, of course you can. In certain circumstances, I say. The net of it is that Prisma Access really does function just like our NGFW platform. It runs the same security capabilities. It is in line with the traffic, so it does the full decryption of the traffic. It'll do the full security inspection, run it through all the different capabilities, same capabilities we would on the hardware, and then it re-encrypts it and sends it back on its way. It supports all of the authentication infrastructures, as Trevor talked about in the webinar. It allows us to bring that enforcement now closer to our remote communities. Now, in branch environments, if we are running a branch office where we are not necessarily needing to do segmentation or east-west protections, 100% Prisma Access can come in and replace, if you will, an existing firewall or even a Palo Alto Networks firewall. However, I do preface this. If you are running services locally and you're trying to segment that network and you want that local segmentation to be able to provide east-west protections, you do need something there. You need a physical presence there. You need a physical box there to be able to do that. You can't do somewhere else in the cloud. It has to physically be on-prem to be able to provide that level of protection. However, if you're not doing that and you're strictly just connecting your users who are at that branch office to their applications, then 100% you can replace that firewall with Prisma Access, provided you've got some connectivity at that local office. Trevor, would you agree? And do you have a perspective you can bring here?
Hey, Trevor, I think you might have muted.
Oh, I did, and here I'm talking to myself. So, sorry. Yes, as I was talking about, a second ago, right, about how we're going through our refreshes right now. We're actually looking at each site and saying, do we need east-west traffic? Do we need things like that? If not, we're going to come in, with an SD-WAN device to kind of replace that. And also looking at our cloud environments, right? We actually used to have, VM series that was doing some stuff up there. And depending on what type of traffic it is, we're actually bringing it into Prisma Access remote networks, and that's what brings it back into our some of our data centers if it's VDIs type infrastructure. But 100%, you can replace NFGs with it. But obviously, you have to understand the environment and make sure there are if you have a large data center, that's probably not the place to do it. So.
Okay. All right. Excellent. Hey, another one here. Does Palo Alto Networks offer a cloud-based management solution separate from Panorama that manages both NGFW and Prisma Access?
Oh, that's a great question. And ultimately, yes, we do. We have obviously a really robust management solution called Panorama. It's been with us for a while. It's really designed to manage your prem and the firewalls that you're deploying on prem, but it can easily extend out to manage virtual firewalls that are in cloud environments, as well as Prisma SASE. For those organizations that don't want to manage a box for their management, if you will, we do offer Strata Cloud Manager. It's a brand new offering. It's just coming. It's rolling out. I think there's an event coming up in the next week or two that's going to describe exactly what it does, how it does it, and why it does it. It's replacing what we called Cloud Manager for Prisma Access. And Strata Cloud Manager is going to be kind of that next iteration of management for unifying policy, automating policy, automating change, all based on best practices, approaches, you name it. It do a lot. Please, if you're interested in the cloud management piece of it, take a look at our website. Join the upcoming webinar. We're going to be talking about the Cosmos launch on. There you're going to be seeing a lot of the Prisma, or I should say, this Cloud Manager showcased, and a lot of information there we're doing on the cloud management front.
Okay, excellent. Hey, well, we are kind of running up on time here. There's a ton of questions here from the audience that we're not going to be able to get to, but we'll be sure to get all those questions over to you guys, so you could possibly respond afterward. But just Don, just as a sort of closing thought, if somebody wanted to get started with Palo Alto or find out more, what do you recommend?
Great question. If you're already a Palo Alto Networks customer, come visit us at paloaltonetworks.com and take a look at our Prisma SASE offering. Prisma SASE is our complete SASE portfolio consisting of SD-WAN appliances, as well as Prisma Access, our SASE or Security Service Edge solution, and on best practices, approaches towards bringing it in. We've got design guides, all sorts of different information. Those of you who are exploring it, getting you will on Palo Alto Networks and our Prisma Access offering, again, come visit us at paloaltonetworks.com. Check out our Prisma Access page and our Prisma SASE pages. You'll find all sorts of information about how our solution can help your organization truly transform, the different benefits that we bring, and getting started guides, best practices, approaches, all that and more is available at paloaltonetworks.com.
Okay, excellent. Well, Don, Trevor, thanks both of you guys for coming on. Just a great conversation. Appreciate all your insights here in the Q&A, and just appreciate your time with us today.
Scott and Trevor, thank you guys so much. It's been a pleasure. I really look forward to being able to speak with you guys again in future webcasts.
Thank you very much, Don and Scott, and thank you everybody for joining.
All right, and before we wrap up, we do have one more piece of business, and that is the Amazon gift card prize drawing. So the winner of the $250 Amazon gift card today is Jacob Fisher from California. So congratulations to Jacob Fisher. We'll be in touch to get you your card. And with that, on behalf of the Actual Tech Media team, I want to thank Palo Alto for making this event possible. And thanks as always for attending and for all of your great questions today. That concludes this event. Have a fantastic rest of your day.